we would like to transit the lock and exit the marina into the river. You ready to go in the river?
Yeah!
Keep blowing your whistle. So this is quite a it's quite a contrast. On one side we have this, and then on the other side there's the old fort there, which is kind of a Napoleonic era fort. And then there are all the kind of mud flats and things, and there are lots of birds tweeting away in the background. It's really peaceful. So yeah, it's quite a contrast between the two. We haven't even had time to jet wash these lines yet, so every line on the boat is like this. It's kind of full of moss almost, so they're all very stiff. There's tons of friction. It's on our to-do list, as are many other things. Isn't it, Emma? It's on the big to-do list. Well, we've only got the Genoa out, and we're not exactly, you know, in racing trim, but we're doing about 5 knots right now, and it doesn't feel like it because the speed through the water is very slow. but because the tide's running quite strong, like I say, we're doing 5 knots, so if you time it right, the tide can be extremely helpful. So Emma's just asked to go inside. Haven't you, Emma? You want to go inside? Okay, Daddy's going to pass you down to Mummy. Go and play with your toys, and we can just stay up here. Well, Daddy will stay up here, and Mummy will stay with you.
So, you want it?
There you go.
Whee!
Have fun. Bye-bye. See you later. So if anybody's wondering why we're not properly sailing today, we've only got the genoa out, not the main. Basically we're taking baby steps. We don't want to do anything to kind of make us go backwards. Rossella's, to be honest with you, she's quite nervous at the moment. She's very nervous. Just tidal waters is brand new to us. So you know, that concerns her a lot. And it's, you know, it's not really, there's no cause for concern at all. Once you're used to tides, they can be really, really useful. But I don't really have any tidal sailing experience either. So we're just taking things very, very easy. And when we're ready to go sailing, we'll go sailing. And until then, we'll do things like this. This is really our first proper trip out that wasn't just a quick, right, we need to get from A to B quickly. This is kind of more relaxing. We're going for our first overnight anchor. So there are already some things going on that are kind of challenging to us. Not really challenging, but a little bit challenging. And basically we want to take tiny, tiny little steps towards our goal of being like we were on our last boat, which is kind of just anchoring everywhere and being totally comfortable. But in order to do that, you have to make sure that you don't have any backward steps, because it wouldn't take much for Rossella to be terrified of sailing here. So my job, as I see it, is to do everything I can to keep things really simple and calm and just help her become comfortable with what we're doing here. So that is why we're not sailing properly today. But that doesn't mean we're not enjoying it. I'm absolutely loving this. And like I say, the whole point is we're doing things in a very particular way so that we can do much greater things in the future. It's actually really nice. So you can already hear the birds when you get away from that container port there, Thames port. You can hear all the birds singing over here.
So le 6, yeah?
Okay. Just been talking to Rossella about anchorages, and it's quite funny because we're kind of heading into Stangate Creek, and off to the right there's Sharfleet Creek around the corner. The funny thing is that from here all you see are some masts sticking up, because obviously the level of the river is going down all the time, and there is land between here and the masts, so it's just a bit strange because you wouldn't really expect there to be an anchorage around that corner. So that's Sharfleet Creek. I do fancy anchoring there too. And there's lots of wildlife here already, it's really peaceful. So I'm just using that boat as a transit to see when we're not moving forward anymore. These bow rollers are really nice actually. Double bow roller that kind of pivots, where you can see it there. It makes a really big difference. Our previous boat just had one roller at the bow, and it kind of caused a lot of friction. But this is really nice and smooth, which is fortunate because we don't have a windlass. So I've got to pull the flipping thing up by hand. So the anchor's on the bottom now, slowly feeding it out. By the way, we are novices at anchoring. In fact, this is the first time we've ever anchored in, oh no, second time ever. It's the first time we've ever anchored overnight in tidal waters in our lives. So I'm just telling you what I'm doing, but feel free to criticise if you think I'm doing something wrong.
I better go and check him in the meantime. Emma fai la brava, amore lì. How many meters? 5.5.
And that should be us. So you do have to take into account the rise and fall of tide. We were in 5.5 metres I believe when I dropped the hook, so we should be good. We're not close to that boat. I mean, in kind of Mediterranean terms, we're absolutely miles away, but depending on people's points of view, we could be considered to be a little bit close. So I think I'll just dinghy over at some point and just say hi and say we're anchored there, we've got 30 metres of chain out, are you happy with that? And no harm in that, is there? Only cost me a minute, so try and be a good neighbour when we can. That's it, it's nearly pizza time, isn't it?
Yeah.
Pizza! And then the last step, something which we always do, just put it in reverse and we go to about 2000 RPM and just give it a good pull, and we'll feel the chain go taut as the anchor digs itself well in. There you go. So we were moving backwards fairly quickly, we've just come to a rapid halt. And you can check transits, so we can look at that boat and it's not moving. Just increase the revs a bit more. 2,400 RPM, and she's well dug in there, so we can switch off now and just chill. Well, I said that was the last thing, but it's not. I always put the anchor ball up as well. It's really obvious that we're anchored, you know, it's pretty hard to mistake that, but I just like to do it. I'm a bit of a traditionalist for things like that, I suppose, so I'm going to do that. I've just swapped over the chain onto this cleat. It just seems to sit a little bit happier on the bow roller coming to this side. So I'm going to hoist this up, hoist the halyard, raise the anchor ball, and then, depending on the wind speed and stuff, I do tend to put a nylon rope onto the chain just to act as a shock absorber, but I'm not going to bother because the weather forecast is fine, so there's no need for it here. And then it'll be time for some food. So darling, what did you think of that today?
It's good, was it? Yeah, it was brilliant. Very relaxing and enjoyable. Emma's has been great, so.
Yes,
perfect.
you were, weren't you, darling?
And now we're eating pizza!
Can you see the sky? Good girl. Can you hear all the birdies outside? There's lots of them. They're going to be our neighbours for a couple of days. Thank you for being such a good girl, Emma. You were brilliant.
Perfect.
And so were you. Couldn't ask for better crew.
Oh, that's good.
For the first time ever, we've got radar on a boat. So it's really handy. I've been able to move the cursor around here and you can see the distances of the nearby boats. So the actual distance between us and that gentleman I mentioned before is 110 metres, which is miles. You know, it's not a problem at all for us to anchor here. But yeah, it's just very handy to have radar. This is the first time I've ever used it. So it's really quite exciting to see ways that this can be useful.
Oh.
Emma, look where we are.
Grazie.
Look where we are. Look around you.
Wow. Bello, Emma, vieni a vedere fuori. Guarda bene.
Can you hear the birdies?
Wow.
Wow.
Daddy.
Another boat. That's a nice view when you're brushing your teeth, isn't it, Emma?
Yeah.
Ducks going past. Quack quack. Say night night, Emma.
Night.
Night night. See you in the next video. If you'd like to buy us a virtual shandy, then you can do so on our Patreon page, and that really does help us out to keep making these videos. Cheers guys, see you next time.